Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, everyone. Let me ask you something that cuts to the core of achievement. Have you ever been incredibly motivated on day 1 but barely hanging on by day 10? We all have. Motivation is exciting, it's loud, it's what gets us started, but consistency, that's quiet. It's the long, hard road, it's what gets us results. And yet, most people give up, not because they don't want it badly enough, but because they don't know how to stay consistent when things get hard. Today, I want to share with you 5 powerful principles, 5 mindset shifts that hold the secret to staying consistent no matter what. These are not hacks, they're truths. Let's begin. People don't burn out because they're doing too much. They burn out because they've lost sight of why they're doing it in the first place. That's the real reason momentum fades, goals stall, and routines feel hollow. It's not the weight of the work, it's the absence of meaning behind it. When you're waking up every morning to hit the gym, build a business, study for that exam, or simply survive another day in a tough season of life, the pressure can feel relentless. It's easy to lose motivation when all you see in front of you is effort with no immediate reward. The grind becomes just noise. The routine becomes mechanical. And then, without realizing it, we stop. Or worse, we keep going, but with resentment instead of purpose. That's the real burnout. Not exhaustion of the body, but depletion of the spirit. The solution isn't to cut back. The solution is to dig deeper. When the surface level motivations don't hold, when I want to look good or I want to make more money, stop being compelling, we have to go beneath them. We have to ask, what am I really doing this for? What matters so much to me that I would endure failure, fatigue, and even ridicule just to get there? This is where your why lives. Not in logic, but in emotion. It lives in the moments that break your heart or make it swell. It lives in the people you love, the legacy you want to leave, the version of yourself you know you could be if you stopped letting fear and apathy win. Think about someone training for a marathon. If they're just running to say they did it or because it's a trending challenge, it's easy to quit when the blisters show up and the knees start to ache. But if they're running because years ago their mother had a heart attack and now they want to honor her memory, every step becomes sacred. The pain doesn't disappear, but it becomes bearable, even meaningful. There's a story about a man who lost over 100 pounds. He didn't do it because he wanted to look better in photos or wear a smaller suit size. He did it because one day his son looked up at him and said, "Daddy, I want you to be at my graduation." That one sentence rewired everything. Suddenly, it wasn't about counting calories or logging mileset, it was about a promise, a future moment he refused to miss, a seat in the audience that had his name on it. His why wasn't a number on the scale. It was a vision of a life he refused to lose. That's what you need, a reason bigger than the obstacle. A reason that grabs you by the gut and says, you can't stop now. Because when the why is strong enough, the how becomes bearable, even exciting. But here's the catch. It's not enough to think about your why. You have to see it every day. When life gets busy and stress piles up, and you forget what matters, you need reminders, that's where the visual comes in. If your why is your family, put their picture on your mirror. If your why is freedom, make your phone background a photo of the beach you want to retire to or the passport you plan to fill with stamps. If your why is proving to yourself that you're not who your past said you were, write that declaration on a Post-it note and stick it on your laptop. Make it personal. Make it powerful. Make it impossible to ignore. Visual reminders create emotional anchors. They pull you back when your focus drifts. They reignite your fire when the embers start to fade. And in moments of doubt, they remind you that you're not just working, you're building something sacred. Think of great athletes. They don't just train for gold medals. They train for the face of the coach who believed in them. They train for the feeling of crossing that finish line with a fist raised to the sky. They carry their why into every practice, every failure, every comeback. And they often visualize it before they live it. That's the power of making your why real before it's realized. This applies to more than fitness or sports. It's true for starting a business, going back to school, rebuilding your life after a loss, or staying sober one more day. Whatever mountain you're climbing, if you can see the reason you started, the summit won't feel so far. Let's be honest. Discipline alone won't get you there. You can't just white-knuckle your way through life forever. Eventually, something has to drive you that isn't rooted in fear or pressure. You need hope, vision, a cause that stirs you. That's what keeps people going when everything else says quit. Maybe your why is to break a cycle of poverty in your family. Maybe it's to create the kind of childhood for your kids that you never had. Maybe it's to finally write that book because someone out there needs to hear your story. Whatever it is, name it, feel it, see it, carry it. And when things get hard and they will, you won't ask, is this worth it? You'll know the answer before the question finishes forming. You see, consistency isn't about superhuman willpower. It's about alignment. When your actions line up with something you deeply believe in, effort becomes easier. Not because the road gets smoother, but because the destination becomes clearer. People don't need more motivation. They need more meaning, more clarity, more reminders of what's at stake if they give up and what's possible if they don't. So, wherever you are in your journey, pause for a moment. Ask yourself not just what you want to achieve, but why it matters. Then make that reason visible. Surround yourself with it. Breathe it in. Let it shape your habits and filter your choices. Because at the end of the day, success isn't reserved for the strongest or smartest or most privileged. It's reserved for those who refuse to forget why they started and who are willing to keep going, especially when the path gets tough because their reason is too important to abandon. Big dreams are beautiful. They light up our imagination. They give us something to believe in when the path feels uncertain. They whisper to us in quiet moments, reminding us that we're capable of something greater. But when it comes to doing the work, showing up, day after day, those same dreams can become overwhelming. We look up at the mountain and wonder how we'll ever reach the top. The climb feels impossible, so we stop before we even take the first step. This is why we need to shift our focus not away from the dream, but towards something much smaller, something manageable, something we can hold in our hands and do today. Because consistency doesn't grow from ambition alone. It grows from rhythm, from simplicity, from actions so small they seem insignificant until they aren't. If your goal is to read 52 books in a year, that's an incredible intention. But don't start by visualizing a stack of novels towering beside your bed. Start with 10 pages. That's it. 10 pages a day. That's all it takes. And if you miss a day, pick up where you left off. Not because the dream has changed, but because your commitment never did. If you want to run a marathon, that's extraordinary, but forget the 26.2 miles for now. Focus instead on the sound of your shoes hitting the pavement, on waking up and putting them on even when your legs feel tired or the sky is gray. Maybe you only make it around the block. That's okay, because what matters isn't the distance, it's the decision. You showed up, that's a win. You honored the commitment, not just the goal. The truth is, most people don't struggle because they're not talented or motivated. They struggle because they expect too much from themselves too soon. They confuse intensity with consistency. They believe success is born from giant leaps, when in fact it's built one small, deliberate step at a time. There's something powerful that happens when you make your goal small but your commitment big. You start to build trust with yourself. You stop making promises you can't keep. You start proving through tiny daily wins that you're someone who follows through, and that feeling, that quiet confidence is what sustains you when motivation fades. We all love to dream, but dreams without discipline are just fantasies. They entertain us, they excite us, but they don't change us. What changes us is practice, repetition, the willingness to show up even when we don't feel like it, especially when we don't feel like it. Think about the habits you've kept for years. Chances are they didn't start with grand declarations. They started with something simple, a bedtime routine, a morning ritual, a walk after dinner, a journal entry before bed. They became habits because they were easy to do and easy to repeat. And over time, they didn't just shape your behavior, they shaped your identity. That's the magic of small goals. They sneak past your resistance. They lower the barrier to entry. They don't intimidate you. They invite you. And the more you accept that invitation, the more momentum you build. There's research to support this. In one study, people who committed to just 2 minutes of a habit like flossing one tooth or writing one sentence were significantly more likely to sustain that habit over 6 months than those who tried to go all in from the beginning. Why? Because 2 minutes feels doable. 2 minutes doesn't trigger your fear of failure. 2 minutes isn't asking you to change your life, it's asking you to take one step. Over time, those 2 minutes often become 5, then 10, then 20. But the key is that they become more. You don't force them, you don't demand it. You let it grow organically from the inside out. That's what makes it stick. That's what builds consistency. Too often, we try to impress ourselves on day one. We want to be the hero right out of the gate. But heroes are forged over time, not overnight. They're not defined by the scale of their first step, but by the quiet courage to take the next one, and the next, and the next, especially when no one's watching. So don't try to conquer the mountain today. Just take one step, then another. Let the mountain come to you. And while everyone else is busy, burning out, chasing intensity, chasing results, you'll be building something deeper, integrity. The world doesn't need more people who start strong. It needs more people who finish, who keep their word to themselves when no one's checking, who set goals so small they can't fail and commitments so big they won't quit. And that's not weakness, that's wisdom. It's knowing that lasting change doesn't happen in a day, it happens daily. It's waking up and doing the thing, not because it's glamorous or exciting, but because it matters. It's walking into the gym when you're tired. It's turning off your phone and opening the book. It's showing up to your craft when inspiration is nowhere in sight. It's trusting that these small acts of discipline are shaping something inside you that's far more important than any outcome, your character. Because when you build consistency, you build credibility with others, yes, but more importantly, with yourself. You start to believe that when you say, I will, it means something. That belief, that's the foundation of self-respect. And self-respect is what makes you unstoppable. So dream big. Absolutely, let that vision pull you forward. But don't chase it all at once. Break it down, make it small enough to start today, and meaningful enough to keep going. Then, make a promise. Not to finish fast, not to impress anyone, but to stay with it, to stay in the process, to stay true to who you're becoming. Don't aim to be a hero on day 1. Aim to be present on day 100. Because that's where the real transformation happens, not in the sprint, but in the showing up. Not in the goal itself, but in your unwavering commitment to keep moving forward. One page, one step, one choice at a time. Most of us grow up with a warped definition of failure. We're taught, explicitly or implicitly, that failure is the opposite of success. That to stumble is to prove our inadequacy. That missing the mark means we weren't cut out for it in the first place. So when we do fail, and we don't just trip and get up, we spiral, we internalize it. We turn one bad day into a reflection of our self-worth. And that's the real danger, not the misstep, but the meaning we attach to it. Think about the last time you fell short of something you set out to do. Maybe you skipped a workout after a perfect 10-day streak. Maybe you gave in to the very habit you've been trying to break. Maybe you told yourself you'd start the new project Monday, and here it is, Friday, and nothing's been touched. What was your internal reaction? Did you shrug it off and adjust your plan? Or did you hear that insidious voice whispering, "See, you're not disciplined enough. You don't really want it. You're a failure." But here's the truth that most people never learn. Failure is not a verdict. It's not a sentence passed down from some cosmic judge to label us forever. It's feedback, that's all. Information, a result that says, hey, this approach didn't work, try another one. When a toddler takes their first steps and falls down, we don't say, walking isn't for them. We cheer, we smile, we hold out our hands and encourage them to get back up. We know the fall is part of learning, but somewhere along the way we forget this. We start expecting ourselves to leap without stumbling. And when we do fall, we shame ourselves instead of studying the fall. Shame is what derails progress, not the mistake itself. And shame is sneaky. It pretends to be logic. It disguises itself as realism. It tells us, well, you've tried before and it didn't work, so maybe this just isn't your thing. It masquerades as protection. Why risk more disappointment? Just settle. Just stop. But shame doesn't protect. It imprisons. Real progress-lasting transformation doesn't come from doing it perfectly. It comes from being willing to do it imperfectly for as long as it takes. It comes from resilience, from refusing to believe that failure is a final destination. Let's talk about the people we admire most: athletes, innovators, artists, leaders. They're not where they are because they never failed. They're there because they learned how to respond to failure differently. Every great athlete has lost more games than they've won. Every best-selling author has had more rejections than acceptances. Every entrepreneur has faced more setbacks than breakthroughs, but they all kept going. They all said the same thing in one form or another: that didn't work. What can I learn? Let's try again. Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb in one attempt. He reportedly failed over 1,000 times. But when asked about those failures, he didn't say, "I kept failing." He said, "I found 1,000 ways that didn't work." That's the difference. He redefined failure. He turned what most would see as 1,000 defeats into 1,000 lessons, and that mindset is what lit the world. What if you approached your own journey with that same lens? What if instead of beating yourself up for missing a day, you asked, what triggered that slip? Was I tired? Was I overwhelmed? Did I not prepare well enough? And what if your response wasn't punishment but adjustment? What if instead of saying, I failed, you simply said, I learned something important? Imagine how unstoppable you would be if you saw every stumble as a stepping stone instead of a wall. Imagine how much further you could go if you didn't have to waste time wrestling with shame every time things went off track. Because here's the thing, shame paralyzes, but curiosity propels. When we approach failure with curiosity, we grow. When we ask, why did this happen? What can I do differently? We turn a dead end into a detour. And the more often we do this, the more resilient we become. Not because we're avoiding failure, but because we're building a mindset that knows how to turn failure into fuel. There's a reason the people who stay consistent aren't necessarily the most talented or the most gifted. They're just the ones who've trained their minds to see setbacks as part of the process, not proof of inadequacy. They don't waste energy on self-loathing. They use it to pivot, to experiment, to iterate. And that means you don't need to be perfect to win, you just need to be persistent. You need to be willing to keep showing up even when it feels awkward, even when it's messy, even when nothing seems to be working, because every time you do, you're one step closer to figuring it out. The road to any meaningful change is not a straight line. It's a zigzag. It's forward and back. It's bursts of motivation and long stretches of doubt. But those moments of doubt, those are not signs you're failing. They're signs you're trying. They mean you're in the game. Nobody remembers the flawless plan that worked instantly. They remember the fight, they remember the grit. They remember the person who fell and got back up so many times that eventually the world had to pay attention. That's the story worth living. That's the legacy worth leaving. So the next time you miss a step, don't give it more power than it deserves. Don't let one skipped workout, one bad meal, one missed deadline convince you that the whole vision is doomed. You're just human. And being human means you get to try again and again and again, until one day what once felt like failure becomes the foundation of your greatest success. We all start with a burst of inspiration, a Monday morning rush of purpose, a decision to start fresh. Maybe it's a new diet, a new business, a new habit. We feel the fire inside us and we think, this time will be different. We tighten our grip on discipline. We chant words like hustle, grind, sacrifice. We post about accountability, set alarms, and promise ourselves we'll push through no matter what, and it works until it doesn't. Because here's the truth. Willpower is a spark, not a power source. It's the match that lights the flame, not the wood that keeps it burning. You can't rely on sheer discipline to carry you through every day, every obstacle, every season. Eventually, life happens. Stress hits. Energy dips. The motivation fades. And if you've built your success on willpower alone, you'll collapse with it. That's why the people who truly sustain excellence, those who are still showing up after the novelty wears off, don't just depend on motivation, they build systems. And that changes everything. A system is the invisible scaffolding that holds your life together when the weight gets heavy. It's not glamorous. It's not the stuff you post about on social media. But it's the reason you get results when others fall off. It's the reason you keep showing up, even when you don't feel like it. Systems turn goals into habits, and habits into identity. Think about someone training for a marathon. Sure, they probably felt excited when they signed up. That initial burst of motivation might have pushed them out the door for the first few runs. But what really gets them across the finish line? Not the hype, not the resolution, it's the schedule they printed and taped to the fridge, the reminder on their phone that goes off at 6 a.m., the pair of running shoes placed by the bed the night before, the water bottle filled and ready, the route mapped out in advance. That's not random, that's a system. And that system turns the hard thing into a normal thing. It turns optional into automatic. This is where many people struggle. They think success is about more self-control, more hustle, more grind. But there's a smarter path. Instead of trying harder, we need to design better. Want to read more? Don't just make a goal to finish 50 books this year. Put the book on your pillow in the morning so you see it before bed. Delete the social media app that steals your time. Use the screen time limit function. These are systems. These are subtle but powerful structures that shape your behavior when your mood no longer wants to cooperate. And here's the beauty of systems: they scale. You can build them into every part of your life. Want to eat healthier? Prep your meals on Sundays. Don't just count on resisting junk food when you're tired and hungry at 8 p.m. Want to save money? Set up automatic transfers to your savings account every time your paycheck arrives. Want to write a book? Block out 30 minutes every morning with a distraction-free app and commit to sitting in the chair whether you feel creative or not. That consistency isn't discipline. It's the system working on your behalf. James Clear once said, "You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems." And when you think about it, he's absolutely right. Everyone has goals. Every athlete wants to win. Every entrepreneur wants to succeed. Every student wants to pass. But the outcome doesn't go to the person with the biggest dream. It goes to the person with the clearest system. Because systems are repeatable. They're consistent. They don't ask for your feelings. They just function. Now imagine what your life would look like if you designed it with systems in mind. If, instead of hoping to be productive, you created an environment where productivity was the default. If instead of praying for motivation, you built a structure that made the right choice the easy one. That's not magic, that's intention. And here's the catch: most people already have systems, they just don't realize it. Waking up and scrolling through your phone before you even get out of bed, that's a system. Grabbing fast food because there's nothing planned for dinner, that's a system too. The question isn't whether you have systems, the question is whether your systems are serving you or sabotaging you. To change your life, you don't need to overhaul everything overnight. You don't need to wake up at 5 a.m. and run a marathon before breakfast. You just need to tweak the system, make it 1% better. Create small friction for bad habits and remove friction for good ones. Put your phone in another room before bed. Lay your clothes out the night before. Prepare the environment so your future self doesn't have to negotiate with your excuses. It's not about being perfect, it's about making the right thing easier. And once that system starts working for you, it creates momentum. And momentum is a powerful thing. Momentum compounds. It reinforces your identity. Suddenly, you're not someone trying to go to the gym. You're someone who does. You're not forcing yourself to write. You're a writer. You're not struggling to save money. You're someone who invests. The transformation happens not just through the outcome, but through the process. And that process becomes who you are. So when motivation runs dry end, don't panic. Don't judge yourself. Don't label it as failure. Look at the system. Ask yourself, where did it break? Where can I simplify? What can I design differently? Because the system doesn't take things personally. It doesn't depend on how you feel today. It just operates day after day like the gears of a well-oiled machine. Your job is to be the architect of that machine. If you want a different result, don't work harder, work smarter. Set your environment up to win. Design your days to reduce decision fatigue. Build support into your schedule. Surround yourself with triggers for the behavior you want, and guard yourself against the ones you don't. Because in the end, you won't succeed because you were the most motivated. You'll succeed because you were the most prepared. You didn't wait for inspiration, you engineered it. You didn't chase discipline, you embedded it into the very fabric of your life. That's the power of systems, and once you learn how to build them, you'll never go back to relying on willpower again. We become what we're surrounded by. It's a truth we overlook in a world obsessed with individual willpower and personal discipline. But the secret to staying consistent, to building something that lasts, often doesn't come from within, it comes from without. From the people we spend time with, the places we choose to be, and the words we speak about ourselves. If you want to change your life, start by changing your environment. Imagine a woman trying to quit smoking. She tried patches, books, everything, but nothing stuck. Then one day she joined a running club. At first, it wasn't about quitting. It was just about moving. But slowly she stopped showing up to her smoke breaks and started showing up to early morning runs. Her lungs got stronger. Her mind cleared. Her identity shifted. She didn't just stop smoking, she became a marathoner. Not because she forced it, but because she immersed herself in a new story. A story about health, commitment, momentum. She didn't become a runner by trying harder. She became a runner by becoming part of a tribe that ran. That's the power of surrounding yourself with identity reinforcers. It's not about pretending. It's about aligning your external world with the internal vision of who you want to be. You want to write? Don't say, I'm trying to write. Say, I'm a writer building my craft. You want to be consistent? Don't say, I'm hoping to be. Say, I show up daily even on the hard days. Language is a mirror to belief, and belief drives behavior. Consistency isn't about gritting your teeth every morning. It's about walking into a room where your desired behavior is the norm. It's about talking to people who see you not for who you were, but who you're becoming. And most of all, it's about speaking to yourself in a way that honors the version of you that's fighting to grow. We don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our system sand. Those systems are often made up of people, places, and words. Join a tribe that reflects your future, not your past. Build rituals that support who you want to be. Call yourself by the name of your next self, not your former one. The more you act in alignment with who you believe you are, the easier consistency becomes. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop waiting for motivation. Because now you're not acting like someone trying, you're acting like someone who already is. And that subtle shift in identity, that's the difference between quitting after a week and finishing the marathon. In a world obsessed with speed, we forget the quiet power of showing up every day. Not perfectly, not dramatically, but persistently, because consistency isn't about being the best. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't quit. So remember, know your why and make it real. Start small, but show up big. Turn failure into feedback. Rely on systems, not just discipline. And surround yourself with a new identity. If you do that, I promise you, you'll stop waiting for motivation because you'll have something better. Momentum. Thank you.